This is Eric L. Dunavant, the Mindset Disruption Strategist. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Redefining Success. Joining me today is Rich LeBrun, who is the founder, CEO, and works with the franchise consulting company. I had the honor of being on Rich's show, to have the chance to return that gift and have Rich come on this show. I couldn't be more excited. I also, we'll get into this a little bit when we do the interview. When I started out in business, I actually worked with a franchise consultant and they were incredibly helpful. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about his story and his work. Rich, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, Eric, thanks for the opportunity. We had such a fun time on my podcast, and I'm just honored to get a chance to be on yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Rich, my first question's always the same. It's a Saturday afternoon. I've got the barbecue grill fired up. We got hot dogs and hamburgers running. I live down in South Louisiana, so we may have a crawfish boil going too, depending on the season. But I've invited all of my friends over. My friends are my listeners. Would you introduce yourself to my friends, but please don't just talk about business?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you have to teach me about this crawdad thing because I'm from Chicago, but I do like barbecue, so that would be fun just to start with.
Yeah.
I would introduce myself as a businessman, but a father of three, a grandfather of five, with another one coming on the way in
Awesome.
February next year. I got twin daughters, a great son, and I married my high school sweetheart. We are together over 50 years, and so it's been a wonderful journey. We live within 10 minutes of our family. We're a very faith-based family, which is God is an important factor, and family is really the most important thing for us. Business is just an avenue to get us the things we want to do with our family.
I love that. I love that. So, Rich, when you get up every day, what are you most passionate about?
Well, I mentioned faith, so I definitely start my morning in prayer and connecting, because that's really the root of my success.
Absolutely.
So if I leave that out of the equation, it's kind of a downhill day from that. But I really enjoy, what I do. And, I mean, I am very passionate about what I do. It's part of my story, that I get a chance to share. And there's a purpose behind this. Besides just, I'm a franchise consultant, besides helping people buy a franchise, there's a real story behind that I really get passionate about hearing other people's story and then see how I can interweave the idea of business ownership.
So do this real quick. Tell us a little bit kind of about the business. Like, who's the ideal client? Who comes in to see you typically? Who are the people that you like to work with and things like that? And then I'd love to, from there, we'll kind of take and unpack your story. Like, how do you even end up in this business and getting to live this passion out?
Yeah. Well, our clients are generally twofold. Okay. One is we help people who want to franchise their business. It could be any type of business that they've had operating for a period of time. And everybody has this thought, a lot of people think Starbucks are franchise. It's not, and there's a decision in the boardroom. And Dunkin' Donuts is a franchise, and there was a decision in their boardroom. So every business owner thinks about things like that. And so if they want to look at becoming a franchise, we help them become one legally and help them market across the country and actually different parts of the world. The other side of the equation is people who are working, okay? And so, it's time. It's time to jump into the entrepreneur side of life. And they're generally... Although we have outliers, we're seeing a lot of young people today because there's a lot of wealth built in young people, but generally the sweet spot's been 45 to 65, middle management up to CEOs.
So where did this come up for you? You said there's a story there.
Yeah.
Kind of tell me a little bit about what happened.
All right. Well, I'm 68, so I've been doing this over almost 7 years now. But at 60, I was in commercial real estate for 30 years.
Okay.
That was my career. I was a W-2 person, although I had some small entrepreneur ventures off the side in my life. But I was doing well. Senior executive, one of the largest companies in the Midwest, and had a $1 billion client out of Australia. And they came into the market in 2006 and 2007. They bought a whole bunch of real estate. And 2008 came and the market collapsed. They didn't have as much fun anymore. So over the next 6, 7 years, I helped them dissolve their assets, which
Oh,
was
wow.
good for them. At the end of the day, I was left standing there without a client,
Right.
and at 60 years old. So I was in the job market.
Mm.
Okay. And what most people don't realize, or they do realize, is it's a tougher market when you're that age. So not many people are looking for senior executives in the market. If they were, pay scales about half what you're making. The job was about half of your talent.
Mm.
And so it gets a little bit lonely out there.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're going, and I'm going, you know what? I'm not done yet.
Mm.
I'm 60. I got a lot of energy, a lot of ideas, a lot of purpose. I got to do something. And
Yeah.
not to get too dark side, but this is my turning point. And I laugh about it now, but at the time I didn't. All of us.
I'm going to ask you to get as dark as you're willing to go,
All
because I
right.
think that people learn from that. I'm not going to push you beyond what you're comfortable, but I think that my listeners could learn from kind of where you went, and let me just tell you why, because I think a lot of times we think we're the only person who ever went through anything like that. And the more we can hear other people's stories, the better it is for us.
Well, when you're 60 years old, out of work, and you're not done, and you got a future ahead of you, and you're interviewing, and it's just not happening,
Yeah.
and you go, ugh. Now, we used to joke about it when I was working there. When I get done working or retiring, I'm going to go work at Home Depot,
Right.
right? Just that everybody, that seems to be the common joke, right? So I go, I'm getting pretty depressed. I'm going, gosh, every day I'm waking up and nothing's happening. And what am I going to do next? I had to actually study the word retirement. I had to study that word because I was like watching all these newscasts about where you're supposed to be in retirement and everything else. And I felt like I didn't hit the mark exactly right, and going, oh my God, now what am I going to do? And so I found out the retirement is a man-made term. It's not a biblical term.
Yep.
And you just work in biblical times. You just work until you die. But you did it with purpose. You didn't have to. You just did it.
Yep.
Here, you have benchmarks, and if you don't hit them, you have this social stigma.
That's good.
So what did I do? I said, I gotta go do something. I can't sit around this house all day. So I went to Home Depot. So this is my joke, and everybody kids me about it now. So I'm interviewing across a young man who's just in the 20s, and I'm in my 60s, and I'm running $1 billion real estate fund, and I'm trying to get a job at Home Depot for $10 an hour, and I got turned down, Eric.
Did you? Oh,
I go, and I left that going, really? My dream of getting a job at Home Depot for $10 an hour isn't going to happen. Which was the kick in the butt I needed. And I drove away, going, Rich, can you do something for $20 an hour? Can you do something? I can go paint houses for $20 an hour.
Right.
So
right.
what are you doing? So that got me on my journey to reinvent myself. And
Okay.
so I started looking at all variety of options, reading and listening. And now I categorize this easily for my clients. You got 5 options. Either retire if you want to. I didn't want to.
Yep.
You get a job back in corporate America. Well, that was kind of a headwind I couldn't seem to overcome. And the last 3 has to do with being an entrepreneur. You either start your own business, you buy a business that's not a franchise, or you buy a franchise. So I went down all those paths. I went down every single one of them. I ran across a franchise consultant, and they started coaching me like I coach my clients. And it's like, oh, I like what you do. And so I went on the adventure and eventually learned. I actually bought a franchise, learned how to be a franchise consultant.
Did you really?
And now I love it because I actually wrote a book called What's My Next Move, because I want to capture my story. And I just know there's a lot of executives out there who are lost, and they're in their 40s or 50s and 60s, and they're going, same thing I had. The depression kicks in, the darkness kicks in. I go, look, there's a world out there that you don't even aware of, that you can buy a business to help you get going. It takes a little bit, take some capital, and you can get control of your life again. And let me just share that with you. It may not be for you, but let me just share that story and share the opportunity. And so I wake up in the morning with that passion, going, there's people just need to hear the story and get an option to see if this is available to them.
How tough was it for you with your family? I mean, I'm going to imagine they were supportive, but I mean, what was that world like with your family as you're walking through that season?
Well, my family is very supportive. My wife is just a phenomenal lady. She's always like, "Oh, God will take care of this. God will take care of this." Like, I know he will, but he's got to show up here soon. So she kept me grounded, and she was very supportive. She was nervous when because when later in life you're investing money, and I know you're in the investment world, you know this.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have an earmark for something else, or
Mm-hmm.
investments were earmarked for something else, and now we had to shift and take this money late in life and risk it. Um, so she was a little bit nervous signing on the dotted line. She's a conservative woman by nature. I'm the more risk taker, and
Yep.
but she not. I'll tell you how the phenomenal thing. I love what I do. I got into business, did for myself by myself for a while. The dream was to get a business where my wife and I could work together. We could travel. We could enjoy life,
Yeah.
and on our terms. So after 2 years into business, she retired from her corporate America job. She now works in the company here, and
Really?
and so we travel, we work, and we do everything we're dreaming about. It's So I wouldn't have planned this. And in fact, it was never on my radar to be in any type of sales. And I'm in consultative sales, which I love.
Yeah.
If I had to do it all over again, I would have done it 10 years earlier.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's
Thanks, Eric.
fun.
Thanks, Eric, for letting me share that.
Yeah. Yeah. What I want to go back to, because this is a phenomenal thing that I know to be true, but I mean, most people don't. I mean, the concept of retirement, I think, is 150 years old. I'd have to kind of go look specifically on the dates. It's mid
Yeah.
1800s. I believe it started in Russia. But what did that journey look like for you as you're like, okay, I think, again, the show is redefining success. I think
Right.
that retirement means this. And so you're feeling like you're not living up to the mark in retirement, and the whole world has bought a lie about retirement that's not even true. So what does it look like as you're kind of uncovering that and pulling that back?
Well, again, the world set the standard.
Yeah.
You have to have so much in your bank account. You have to maintain a certain lifestyle. And when you retire, by the way, when you retire, then you go travel on your yacht, go golfing, do something, right?
Right. Right.
Um, Now, fortunately, my wife and I had talked long before this happened. I said, when we retire, what do we want to do? And we're not yachting people, although I like to golf. I'm not very good at it. But we talked about volunteering anyhow. We talked about
Okay.
volunteering and getting involved in God's world from that perspective. But most people just don't have a definition, and the society is defining it. So when
Yeah.
I love to work. This is not a negative thing. I mean, I
Right.
I, I love to work on my terms. I always say this, that I don't want to have to work, but I love to work.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love talking about business, and I love meeting people like you, and I love doing the podcast and helping in the consulting world. So it's like, why would I rob myself of that joy
Mm-hmm.
because society said at 65 you're supposed to be done? It's like,
Yeah.
so when I took the word of retirement out and saw that it was a man-made term, it was a term, and it's actually in the late 30s that they kind of created the whole social security system
Yep.
and everything else that people kind of like, you know, rely on, which is really insufficient anyhow to begin with. I got to tell you, it really opened up the door for excitement
Mm.
because now it's like, some of my friends retire, which is great, and they look at me and go, "Well, right now I'm semi-retired." So we work 3 days a week.
Sure.
It's all we want to do, and in the business we love. We travel in the wintertime out of Chicago to go to warm weather places, and um, we have flexibility in our schedule. It's our business is portable. I have a couple employees across the seas that I get to support and help. So I turned something that was a negative, idea, especially
Mm-hmm.
if you're thinking you're not hitting retirement. Now, people who are financially well off and have other dreams, that's fine. And again, the question to me is, and God asked me, well, put a number on it, Rich,
Oh, yeah.
and that number keeps moving. You know
Right.
that, right? So without a pre-thinking the thought process, that number is just never achievable because you'll just keep kicking it down the hill,
That's right.
more adding more zeros behind it. So I just redefined the whole concept. I'm doing what I love in the way I want to do it with the people I want to do it, and getting a chance to meet people across the country, across the world, and have flexibility for my grandkids. And so I think if people are listening, I would say just redefine it. Take the word
Mm.
retirement out as society defined it, add it back in under your new definition, and it's actually an exciting time.
Rich, one of my mentors called it retirement. He said it's where you take off the old tires and put on new tires and just
I
keep
love
on
it.
going.
I love it. I love it. I can tell your friend I'm stealing it. So
I've got another friend of mine who said, so long as you're the only one, I mean, once you've got it, it's yours. Say it your own way, and now you own it. So, I mean, no credit needed. But I
yeah.
just thought that was great when he got ready to go. He's like, I'm just retiring.
Yeah.
Put the new tires on.
What a great visual. I'm going to go in, put a new set of tires on. I get another 50, 70,000 miles out of
That's
it.
exactly right. That's exactly right. Hey, I wanted to, especially since this is really your passion, I want to talk more kind of about the franchise world and what that looks like. Because I mean, it seems really cool of you being in a position to help create vision for people or help people bring vision alive, maybe is the better word, right? Because they've got to have their own vision to really be successful at it. But when you're doing kind of your franchise consulting, maybe let's start with what are some of the greatest misconceptions of people who come to you that they don't, that they need to, they kind of, you had to let go of the stories in retirement. What are the stories people need to let go of regarding franchising when they kind of come in and start thinking about it?
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit before the show. If I walk up and down the street and said the word franchise, I'd say 8 out of 10 people are going to think in a negative connotation. Not so much because it's because they don't understand the model. Okay, and this is no reflection of the brand. I'm going to say Subway, for example.
Sure.
Okay, great brand, very successful brand. But they can't see themselves being an executive, leaving the corner office and going down there making sandwiches. They just that's exactly the mentality where they go.
Right.
And so I have to get them back, what I call, I have to get them back in that executive seat and go, wait a minute, let's talk about wealth building. And do you know there's some people who own 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 Subways. Okay. And their little corner office is actually bigger than yours. Because they built wealth. And then if you go on the internet, you type in the largest franchise owners, you're going to see corporations that own thousands of them. People, Target Stores owns 1,000 Pizza Huts. Wow. You know, Warren Buffett owns Dairy Queen. This is a wealth building mechanism. And I need to get that conversation back from, oh, I'm going to go make sandwiches to sitting in, no, let's talk about wealth building, investments, and and how you can capitalize that, build a legacy, and a lot of good things that come out of it. And so the other piece is, I always tell people you need a bigger vision than the franchise. If you bought a McDonald's just comes nicely wrapped up in a ribbon in a box. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You open up the box and you got a McDonald's. You got a couple $1 million. You're in business. Okay. But there's top performers in McDonald's, and there's average performers in McDonald's, and there's below average performers. And the differentiation is you. Okay. So what's your vision? Why is that top performer top performer? Well, a lot of them have a bigger vision. They have a passion in life. They're dealing in the community, hiring better. They have a social cause that's supporting it. All the dreams that you really want to have on top of why you're owning a business. Because a business only can do so much for you, whether it's a franchise or not. But really, where you get a chance to get excited, and I always tell people, you need to start creating a vision. Like, you're now the CEO, you're now the owner. You have things in life you want to accomplish, people you want to build into, family members you want to leave legacies, or a cause that you want to donate to. Think about it from that perspective, and then just use the business as your tool. So when I get that excitement level back up and I get them back in that CEO corner seat thinking, executive thinking, then they take a breath, and then I talk to them about investments. And I tell them, your number one competitor, believe it or not, is the private equity group. They have more zeros behind their check. Okay, but they're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in the industry because they can de-risk the investment. That's why they like franchising. So if they like it for the same reason you like it. Now let's go out there and attack this thing from an investment. It may not be for you. Maybe you even shouldn't be an owner. We'll find that along the way. But let's get that idea of owning a business where it's supposed to be as an option, as just one of an alternative to investments. We believe in stocks and real estates and bonds and all those other things too, but it should be on their list to consider.
Wow, that's really a powerful shift. I mean, you talk about redefining success and trying to plug in franchising. A lot of people would probably skip that step without even realizing it's a viable option that they should consider.
Well, and people don't realize, most people go, Starbucks is a franchise. It's not. Right. Okay? It's a business, but at the end of the day, you're buying a business. I mean, you talked kind of jokingly before. A pizza place is a franchise. The pizza place is not a franchise. It's still a pizza place. It's
Yeah.
just a business. It's a business model, and
Sure.
businessmen and women, executives can understand business models, and they can evaluate because that's what they do every day,
Yeah.
right? And one last thing on this, Eric, the most fascinating thing I find about this. Now I'm talking with executives, and they could be, again, middle management to CEOs, big jobs, big corporations, managing hundreds of people, right? And I start getting them to talk about investing in themselves.
Mm.
And I got to tell you what, I said, if I interviewed with you, Eric, I would dress the part, I'd look the part, I'd tell you about why you should hire me, I'd convince you. And then if you hire me, I spend the next 10 years trying to make sure you made the right decision.
Right.
That's easy to do. But I said, if you're now hiring yourself, you'd be amazed, Eric. The biorhythms drop. They go, oh, I got to invest in me. I said, aren't you that same guy or gal who looks the part, dresses the part, has it same criteria, same success, same accomplishments? Aren't you that same person? Yeah. I go, well, why wouldn't you invest in you? And I know you love that topic about investing in yourself.
So what do you do to invest in Rich?
Well, I listen to podcasts. I meet people like you. I really try to keep myself motivated and stimulated through other people, because it is lonely at the top, as they say. Yeah. So I try to do that. I definitely invest myself spiritually, and I could probably do a lot better job investing in myself physically. That's off the charts right now. I got to get that back on the charts. Yeah. And that's what I really do. I have a good group of people, support group, family around me, good group from my church around. So I invest in a lot in that type of foundation building. And so business becomes important, by the way. It's just not the most important.
Hey, Rich, what would you say to the person who's like, hey, you know what? I don't have millions of dollars to invest in a franchise, so franchising isn't for me. What would you say to those type of people?
Yeah, and thanks for asking that question. That's the misnomer. Yeah. Okay. Well, there's franchises that cost $50,000. Okay. And there's franchises that cost way over $1 million. There's 3,500 brands, 40, 50 different industries. Depends how you carve them up. You can finance them 20, 30% down. There's just so easy to get into the business for a lot less than anybody would ever imagine. Okay. And so I would say, no, you don't need that. And by the way, I tell people, I don't care how much money you make. You can make 50,000 a year or 5 million a year. I don't care. We can get you there, and we can replace that income. It's just a matter of how and when.
Oh, that's good.
So it's really it's a mechanism people should just take a look at. Now, by the way, half the country are designed by personality profile. Half the country really should not be business owners. And I always joke, if everybody owned a business, none of us would have any employees.
That's true.
Yeah, but we help them discover 3 things. One is, should you be a business owner? Period. We help them discover that. If so, is the franchise model right for you? Because it's not right for everybody. If you can't follow the system, don't buy a franchise. But if it is right for you, then ultimately, what brand makes sense? So we take them on that journey. And by the way, we do it for free. To our clients, we obviously get paid by the franchise companies. It takes them, cost them no money to go on it. It's probably the safest risk to look at from an investment standpoint. If they can devote about 4 months of time, it's very sophisticated, very methodical, MBA level approach.
Rich, I'm going to take you in a little bit of a different direction, because you've kind of, in one sense, the way you described this, you've lived 2 lives. I mean, you had your real estate life, and I'm going to imagine, maybe I'm wrong, but the kids were kind of out of the house and everything else when you kind of went into the second life.
Yeah.
As you've kind of journeyed through life, I'd love for you, with this being the Redefining Success podcast, like, what's the biggest change on the definition of success you've seen throughout the course of your life? So maybe you thought success was one thing when you were younger, but as you've gotten older, you realize it's completely different.
Well, as much as I was been a spiritual man for 35 years when I came to faith, I was kind of embarrassed that I actually had to redefine this thing. I didn't know how much I was counting on corporate America for my self-esteem.
Okay. Really?
As much as who would have caught me before that time, I was a very spiritual guy and thought I had it all figured out. When you lose something, you figure out what you don't have. Yeah. Actually literally redefined my success at that moment. I said, no, never again. My success is going to be defined by relationship with Christ.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And so I've already gone down the other path. It was fun, exciting, but not fulfilling. So I still do business and I still make money and I still like all those things, but I have it redefined already that at the end of this journey, I want to be closer to Christ, and that will be determined if I was successful or not.
Oh, powerful, not popular,
not
but a powerful
popular
statement. And I think you would agree, the minute you can kind of grasp that, it's life transforming. It really, at least what I found to be true with that statement, is it not only redefines things, but it actually, what I like to tell people is it brings more peace, believe it or not.
It's very freeing.
Yeah.
It's on your terms now. And really, I couldn't think of a better partner, by the way.
Right.
It's like I have partnership meetings in the morning. It's him and I having a conversation about where he wants to take this business.
That's it. That's it. I was talking to an employer who kind of got this as well one day, and I was like, so you got a payroll problem? He's like, nope, Jesus has a payroll problem. I'm asking him what he wants to do about it.
I love it.
Oh, that's so good. Rich, is there anything we didn't get to talk about today that you wanted to make sure you shared while we were doing our interview?
I mean, obviously, if we're talking business, I would like people just to hear that owning a business ownership. I'm going to take franchise out of the word. Business ownership is a wealth building mechanism that should be an option that you can consider to reach a lot of the other things in life they wanted to. And so if they can just think about that, then franchise is just one of those options.
I'm gonna piggyback on this. I told you before I recorded a video yesterday, but I'm gonna give this to you so you can take this out. I also want my audience to hear this. The scripture is actually very encouraging of us putting capital at risk. And if you want the example, Jesus gave two parables, which is really, really interesting when you talk about investing. In one parable, he talks about the parable of the talents. And in the parable of the talents, what you have is a wealthy man who entrusts other people with his money, and it says goes away for a long time. And when he comes back, the successful servants have averaged about a 10% return a year. I've gone in and run the calculations. 10% is about what you get out of stock investing. So I'm like, looky there. I mean, it's almost like God has said, hey, and that's one way to invest in business. But what most people don't realize is there's also the parable of the minas, which is a completely different parable, different location where Jesus was giving it, different time. And in this parable, the man leaves to be made king, but there's also an indication he's gone for a very long time. And the successful servants in here 10x the money. And when I've gone back and looked at that, that's what business ownership is. And so Jesus is using examples of putting capital at risk is something that God wants us to do in his kingdom. And so everything you're saying is true. And the higher return came from the people who took risk in business.
I love that, Eric. And, I'm glad if I can just add to that, one little piece. There's a world out there called prosperity.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing. And when you look at building wealth and doing for the stories you just said, and you have a kingdom purpose, then make it 14x, 20x.
Right.
Because, when you have the right mindset, then you can just do wonderful things in this world for the kingdom. And there's nothing wrong with wealth, nothing wrong with money. But when you think about it in the prosperity and what's in it for me, then you get into the greed factor and all those type of things. So I think if you get the right perspective, then I would say I'm right there with you. Find people like you, Eric, to help people create the 10x for a purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Amen.
Absolutely. Rich, if somebody's listening, they want to get in touch with you, they want to follow what you're doing, they want to find out more about franchising, they want to get a copy of your book, What's My Next Move? What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, they can email me at rich@thefranchiseconsultingcompany.com. I know it's a long one. They can text me at 847-912-4310. And make it even easier, just go to rlebrun.com. That's my website. You can you can get all the information you need there.
O-U-R, our?
It's R
Oh,
LeBrun.
R LeBrun.
Yeah,
Got
I'm
it.
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, R for Rich.
Got it.
rlebron.com is the
Okay.
easiest, but it's shortest and easiest way to get there.
Yeah. Go to rlebrun.com. Make sure you get in touch with Rich. You can order your book there.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, if they go out there, just send me an email or text. I'll just send them a free copy.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Rich, we've come to the end of the show. My last question is always the same. I told you this question was coming. In 3 generations, what do you hope your great-grandchildren remember about you?
Well, maybe it sounds a little cliche, but I hope that they would remember that their grandfather, great-great-grandfather, was a man of God, that they really cared about family. And this is a business one. I really love the entrepreneur world. I love to teach my kids. I did all over again to be entrepreneurs. It's not for everybody, but once you have that spirit within you, okay, then you're free. So I hope my great grandkids would be entrepreneurs, at least learn about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Rich, thank you for such an incredible interview. Thank you for being authentic and open too. I really
Eric, you're just a great person at large, and I love getting to know you. And thank you for having me on your show, allowing me to express my perspective on things.
Yeah, it's been a great show. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be with you again next episode. God bless you. Have a fantastic day.